You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Music Tectonics, the podcast that goes beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host for this episode, Tristra Newyear Yeager, Director of Strategy at Rock, Paper, Scissors, the music PR firm. Today's guests have been quietly powering some of the best streaming music experiences out there, getting Neil Young and services like Prime Phonic reliable turnkey ways to stream high-res audio and video. Frankie Tan and Kelvin Lee, our guests today, are founders of OraStream, the B2B force behind many an HD audio and video streaming project. Frankie has a background in business and engineering, and Kelvin has a long track record in tech, but they both are passionate music lovers who know why high-quality audio really matters. Thanks, Frankie and Kelvin, for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Great. It's great to have you here. And it's wonderful to get a chance to talk to both of you about what high-res audio is, does, and means. First, how do you guys explain OraStream when you say run into a new acquaintance at a party or at a more casual gathering? How do you explain what you do?
Yeah, I would think that we are in the business of doing high-quality content delivery. For a person that I first met, in an event, I would just basically explain that, the high quality aspect is something that is way overlooked for many, many years, So for the last 2 decades, people have been just looking at listening to audio, in MP3 quality, and there's so much that they lose out, 2 generations of listeners who grew up on MP3s, and basically they think that this is good enough, until they were to put on decent headphones or basically really have, a decent pair of speakers turned on with music, real music coming from CDs, from a high-res digital file or even vinyls. Then they find that, there's so much things that they're missing out there. And I think one example that bring across was when I talk to young people, people sometimes as young as my daughter's age, she's in her teens now. So when they ask, what I do, as a professional, and I said that, this is essentially focusing on high quality sound in the various media and content that we deliver. They look very surprised. They basically do not know that there's anything wrong with it. Until they basically just stop listening to audio that's played through their mobile phones and basically turn on the sound on really a good hi-fi system. So we have a very good demonstration in our mobile apps on both the iOS App Store and on Google Play Store. So usually I would also invite them to download the OraStream Brio app so that they really have a shot at it, especially for people that I kind of get acquainted to when I'm in the digital equipment or gear store, selling headphones, earbuds, speakers, and etc. I would just invite them to really experience how this is like coming through from our mobile app.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, hearing really is believing, and it's hard to know what you haven't heard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's really hard to actually know that, this is what you're missing out until you have experienced it by hearing and by feeling what is in the music itself.
Yeah, I think everyone is a little bit more familiar with with the image resolution and its effect on our experiences. I was wondering, Frankie or Kelvin, if you could go into a bit about exactly what we mean when we talk about high-res or lossless audio. I think it's a word, it's just like immersive audio or spatial audio. There's all these new audio standards and formats that people throw around pretty blithely, but we may not exactly know what it means technically. So let's get technical for a sec. What exactly is high-res or lossless audio?
To me, Being a former musician, it means getting what I've recorded, the sound that I have painstakingly captured, through my recording gear, into a digital format that is best representative of how it actually sound like when I recorded this in the studio. So high resolution audio is probably a name just given so that it kind of tells us, it's captured not in a tape format. It's not in a media where, there is very low signal to noise ratio, just to be technical for a bit here. But we are talking about the highest possible digital format that you would be able to utilize, through your recording gear, And I think that basically to me is high-res audio, but over the years, people use it as a marketing term, just to differentiate between what you would buy as CD, rate book quality in the store. Okay, and these days, basically, it's rare to actually encounter a physical media like CD or even a DVD, and so basically, having digital files, a digital format like FLAC or Apple lossless, typically would represent what we know as high-res audio these days. But back then, I think it's more about the sound. How do you best bring the sound out from an analog instrument and capture it and retain the fidelity and the accuracy, the representation of what you hear to your audience. And this is now being represented from, moving from CD to a physical media like DVD. This is now going through basically a digital format, in a file or a stream representation, and is coming to you, from all the streaming services that you have, in the world, the Apple Music and the Tidal and the Amazon Musics of the world.
So as a musician, I'm sorry, Frankie, go ahead.
Yes. Most people in the industry would refer high resolution audio to anything that's digitized or sampled at 48K and at 24-bit depth. So anything that's 24-bit depth and 48K sample rate and higher, these are, according to the industry, this is classified as high resolution audio. Anything below 48K 24-bit depth, so CD, for instance, isn't actually considered high resolution. And lossless audio quality just refers to the compression process in terms of the digital files. In a lossless compression or high-res lossless compression, the digital audio data bits are preserved in its original condition or original quality. It doesn't go through a process of what we call perceptual lossless audio encoding that involves removing audio data bits, and hence the word lossy audio from the digital file. So these are kind of the technical definitions and differentiation between what's a lossy digital file and what's a lossless and high resolution audio file. So it's pretty technical, but it has to do with the resolution, the definition of the audio of the digital audio, in terms of audio quality.
I think to take a step further, the high-res formats that we are looking at essentially would eventually represent or transport the efforts, of a recording engineer, and those who are involved in the mastering, in the mixing processes. It's basically an art form, a skill that not many in the world would be able to master. And essentially it is to turn that sound, that is being captured through these people, into the best possible sounding recordings, that you eventually release for production into the masses. I think doing that do justice to the sound that the artist has intended, and the effort, the hard work and the effort put in by all these people who are involved in the production work. So I think, there is a joke in the industry that, you basically spend $1,000, on creating this soundtrack, and then you spend 1,000 more buying equipment to have this mixed and produced. And on the other end, your users are going to spend like a few $100s buying very decent audio gear. But what you're getting out of this process when it comes to, releasing it for production is actually, an MP3 quality. So it's kind of like you run into a bottleneck. You strip off the recording of its of the most essential information, and what's left over is actually what goes out, to people who are interested in, in supporting an artist. So essentially, it's like, something is wrong there. Why are we even doing this when 20 years ago, 30 years ago, basically, people were able to really enjoy a decent piece of work in a red book CD, in its original lossless representation of the recording. So something has happened there. We have taken a step back in the last 20 years, just to make do with something that's inferior to even the CDs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost like there's this $10 earbud bottleneck, even if the producers and the listeners have invested heavily in decent equipment, there's that broken link in the chain that reduces everything to much, much lower quality. Wow, that's a really interesting way to put it in historical perspective, Kelvin. So where does this bottleneck come from? What are the technical challenges that have caused this sort of strange failure in the audio supply chain, for lack of a better way to put it, and how I think OraStream has really tried to tackle some of them. So let's talk a bit about those challenges and what y'all have done to address them.
Yeah, so I guess the benefits of digital audio is has really resulted in convenience. It brought along portability of music, mobile music, and a very high level of convenience in terms of consuming music by mass consumers. So that has been the benefit and the driver of digital music when Apple capitalized on lossless music and digital audio. And of course, over the years, convenience has trumped quality. So what we set out to do with this technology was to kind of say that we can enable the quality without sacrificing convenience. So in our application, which is really focused on mobile, easy access to music, the convenience of accessing music, the ease of accessing music, we continue to focus on not taking away the convenience, but enabling the high fidelity and the high quality sound of the music. So you get now, the original reproduction, or as close to the original production as possible, without sacrificing the convenience that you have been used to over the last 20 years. Which has been the main driver behind digital music. So that's kind of what OraStream set out to do. When we started this company, to use scalable lossless audio coding technology for music streaming.
I think another reason why people persisted with using MP3s and AAC, essentially the lossy formats in most of their listening, for the last 2 decades. I think part of it has got to do with the habits that they have, in terms of buying music directly from iTunes. For 99 cents a track, it's really very convenient, for anybody to just pick what they like to be added to their shopping cart, and then just pick that instead of the entire CD, where probably you're going to just skip 80% of the tracks. I think for some reason this persisted, and people think that this is convenient, but I think Apple and Amazon Music, in the last 12 months since they launched the lossless and high-res versions of the music that's in the catalogs. It's restoring music, in the way that it's supposed to be listened by people around the world.
Where do you think the main places where we're going to see consumer demand for higher resolution audio take off? Where do you guys see the most interest, action, potential development?
I think it may start very naturally from the smallest things, like, the music that we are listening to. Gradually, they are being replaced by the lossless version. People are taking that very naturally now, because for the same price, you're not listening to MP3s, but you have a choice to turn that on. Once they turn that on, they will just go with that, unless they are on, say, for example, a mobile cellular connection, they are concerned with the data usage. Then obviously there is a choice to switch back to different quality. And that's exactly what OraStream is strongest in, because our adaptive streaming allows a user to be able to pick the most suitable profile for any situation that they're listening music in. We have been pushing the sort of adaptive streaming technology for the last 10 to 12 years. It would mean that users are getting really the bang for their buck, and basically they are not going to say, okay, I've experienced this, therefore, I'm going to just go back, or take a step back, pay for less, and then listen to something more inferior. So all these are naturally making progress. They are basically taking in things that are more high res over time. It's just like TV. I like to always go back to how TV and vision has basically progressed with time. People used to think that SD is good enough, and back in those days it was 480p, and then it goes from there to 720, which was DVD standard. And these days, if you go with 720, it's just too little for your 65-inch TV at home. So basically, people are going for a 4K resolution, and that happens very naturally over time. They're not even like thinking about should the quality be this good in order to, for me to watch this on my 4K TV or on my hi-fi system at home. So for the same reason that is true for visual, the same I think applies to audio as well. We should be expecting things to move beyond MP3 320 kilobits per second. Okay, but I like to basically raise this point here that unfortunately there's always this disparity. While 4K displays have moved to 8K, and 4K is really the mainstream format these days. You get 4K on Netflix. On YouTube, you get a growing amount of content that's recorded in 4K, whether it's produced as a movie trailer or it's basically YouTubers worldwide. Okay, 4K is now the de facto. But what is there to say about the audio? It remains at MP3 at 320 kilobits per second. While this has gone up for video, nothing has changed for audio at all. And this is going to be a widening disparity as we move up from 1080p 4K, which is 2160, up to the next higher standard, okay, which is 4320 or 8K. You can visualize it in the chart, that for a 320 kilobits per second MP3, it's essentially 0.3 Mbps. And then for a 4K display, you're basically at, say, 16 to 24 megabits per second. So this is a factor of almost 0.3 versus probably 60 times, Yeah, video is 60 times the size of audio, and video continues to gain inroads into even higher resolution, while audio is basically taking a backseat, is pushed to a second spot, a far second spot.
I wanted to go back to Tristra's point and add that actually I don't think it's going to be a kind of big bang sort of event, in terms of conversion or adoption of better quality audio. I think it's just going to be very subtle. I mean, let's take a look at classical genre. Like, we powered the first classical music service in high resolution and losses, and that was Classics Online back on 2015. It was a service led by Nexus US, actually based out of Tennessee, and in fact that was the first classical genre service that featured lossless and high-res 24:192 audio quality, and that was the service that spawned Primephonic, and then spawned Idejo, and then Presto Music. So you can see, and now Amazon has acquired Primephonic to bring it into the Apple Music suite of services. So you can see that the next classical music service, if there's going to be one, it's not going to be run on MP3 audio anymore. There's just no comparative advantage at all. So you can see that effectively in the genre of classical music, classical music lovers are going to be able to experience high resolution and lossless audio quality if they want to do so. The services will be there for them. Obviously, like Kelvin said, for maybe budget cellular package, cellular data budgeting purposes, they choose to stream in MP3 quality to conserve bandwidth. That's a use case. But you can see that in classical music, for instance, classical music lovers don't need to go back to MP3 anymore. There is no turning back. And I think that this is how it will happen. It's very subtle. People will get to listen to their favorite music in lossless audio quality. And after they listen to it for a week, a month, if they go back and listen to MP3 quality, they will start to hear that there is something different in the music. It just doesn't sound as exciting. It in fact sounds quite boring, and then they wouldn't go back to MP3 or lossy quality anymore. There are very subtle differences that you hear and you feel, when you listen to lossless audio quality music over time. Of course, most people say, in comparable A/B testing, nobody can tell the difference. That's because you're listening to it just on that instance. But if it's a music that it's just like a movie. If you love a movie, you've watched that movie many times, you know what's the next line of dialogue. It's the same like music. Once you know that music, you listen to it you listen to it often enough. When you hear something that's missing, you just know it. I think that it's very subtle. It's not a big bang event that this is going to happen and then tomorrow everybody's going to listen to high-res music. It wouldn't work that way. It would just be a very subtle diffusion of technology over time. We can see this happen already in classical music, where listeners are discerning about sound quality because of the instruments that are available in an orchestra, for instance. But we see this diffusion and adoption of high resolution and lossless audio quality by consumers over time. It won't be a kind of big bang today, this event tomorrow. We're all high res, audio consumers. It wouldn't happen that way. But it's a process. It's a diffusion process.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And that also harmonizes perfectly with what Kelvin was saying about the slow progress of, image resolution, and how now if you're used to looking at a super high-res screen, if you look at an old TV from the 90s, it's just like painful, right? It's unwatchable almost. So right. I can imagine a similar progression happening with audio. And it's so interesting that classical music is leading the way. Another leader in who's been demanding high quality audio for decades, is Neil Young, whom you've gotten a chance to work with as well. And I was wondering, having worked with Neil and his team, and, they're super thoughtful about audio quality and what it means to the fans and to the music. I'm wondering if you guys could explain a little bit, from your experience, what it means to artists to have their music available in this much sort of higher caliber form. What has Neil told you? What have other people told you? Why is it important for artists to have access to this, audio quality?
Well, I kick off first, but I hope Kelvin can jump in as well, because Kelvin, feels very passionate about this matter as well. But I mean, Neil feels that Neil has always expressed this, that music is an art form, and it needs to be preserved. And if you want to preserve an art form, you preserve it in its as close to its original production quality as possible. That is really close and dear to him, because he feels that the art form is just being diluted. People don't get to appreciate the art form in the way that it was performed, in a way that they took pains, like Kelvin had said earlier, to preserve.
I remember one of the first exchanges I had with Neil was when we were working on improving the streaming, I would say the streaming strategy, that we have for Neil Young archives. I think we started with something like a slow ramping up of the quality, in the early stages, and Neil was very concerned with that, because the moment you do a ramp up in quality, it means that, hey, you're going to be missing out the first 10 seconds, because it's all going to be sacrificed in the ramping up operation. And then as an artist, you actually would like to convey the entire integrity, I would say the authenticity of the sound, in the recording, not just in the next 10 seconds, but from the moment you start play, it should already be able to convey the entire authenticity of the recording. And why they strive to do that, I think over the years, then I realized, it's basically for the same reason a painter, a photography, both are artists, and as a musician, this artists, what they are trying to do is to capture a moment, the moment that they probably are going through, or when they are penning down the lyrics, or even if these lyrics have been penned down for many years, they have been re-recorded. Neil has sung many of his songs that has been written many years ago in various variations, in various renditions, and people enjoy every single one of them, even the B-takes, even the ones that has been hidden, in the attic for many years. And then, as they recover all these recordings, and they kind of remaster and bring this out to the fans. One thing I realized, that the fans are not looking for perfect recordings. They are looking for recordings that capture the moment, that tell a story, the history behind what has happened across the decades, as some of these lyrics may have been the same, but things have evolved. The story has begun to take on a life on its own. Okay, and I think all these things are essentially all captured through the digital format, that we are kind of responsible for. So I do feel that, there is this sense of mission, of going into this mission together with Neil and his team, that we are into this together, and it's not just the recording side, the studio side of things, but really bring the entire package out, right to the doorstep of his fans, until they are really consuming the music with their audio system, whatever it is. It could be a earbuds or speakers. So I think that is really very, I think, crucial to an artist. And I realized over the years, that it's not just about the beats and the technical specifications, but it's about carrying the true sound over, whether it sound like it has been polished with auto tune, or it's really recorded, with a single take, on really an acoustic guitar that you sit down and strum on. These are essentially what is possible if these are maintained, in its truest form and presented to fans worldwide.
Yeah, and for Neil, it's not just also the audio quality. I mean, obviously, what he really wants is to preserve the art form, and that's really paramount. But the other thing that he has actually pushed forward, which is less sort of less well known, but equally important, is that music shouldn't be priced differently. He takes the stand that high resolution audio or high quality or better quality or lossless audio shouldn't be for the elite, shouldn't be for people who can afford to pay for them. To him, music to consumers has to be delivered in the best quality, and it's up to the consumers to decide and choose at what quality do they want to consume it at. If consumers don't care about the quality, they are happy and they feel that an MP3 or 320 kbps is good enough, so be it. It's but for another consumer who wants the highest quality, then the consumer should be able to get the highest quality without any increase in price. And so on in the New Year Archives, he practices what he preach. You can buy high res download or high res album on the New Year Archives, 192 kilohertz sample rate, 24-bit audio quality at the same price as an MP3 download an album available on the iTunes store. So that is he kind of practices what he preach. He the other thing is that he disagrees that high resolution audio music has to carry a premium. And I think when he first kind of discovered us, he had wanted to run sort of transform Pono into a streaming service, and he actually went to the major labels and see the CEOs of the major labels and told them that he wanted to run a high res streaming service priced at $9.99. And his reasoning was that he's using OraStream, which is an adaptive audio quality technology. The audio quality that a consumer consumes depends on the bandwidth of the consumer's network. So he says that there is no guarantee that the consumer is consuming high-res quality all the time, because networks are slow, can be slow in certain areas, and the technology will reduce the audio quality so that the quality of service will be maintained. And so consumers don't consume high resolution all the time, and so therefore there shouldn't be a justification to price a service at $19.99 or $15.99 or $12.99. So he maintained that it should be $9.99, and of course that's something that not all the labels agree. So he decided then to do it for his own music, where he can control how this music is not only delivered at what cost and what price to the consumer. You see. So that's the other thing about Neil. It's not just about audio quality. It's about how consumers should be given the choice to consume music at whatever quality they want, without using price to select or pre-select or differentiate between different types of music consumers. So that's the other quality that I think that it's some people say that it's kind of like but these are kind of like very philosophical type of principles. It's just it's very principled arguments. And I cannot disagree with that. That line of thought.
Well, especially if we're going to consider this an art form, and if we're going to think about how to access that art form, the more democratic we can be. If we think that art form has an important impact on human life, then we need to make sure as many humans as possible can get a chance to enjoy it. So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Frankie and Kelvin, for taking the time both to dive deep into the technical side of audio streaming and also to talk a bit about the human and the cultural sides.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know you can dig deeper into all our episodes with the show notes at musictectonics.com? While you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference, sign up for our newsletter to get updates, or get the Music Tectonics app for music tech news. Everything we do explores seismic shifts that shake up music and technology the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Dmitry Vitsa, if you can spell it, on LinkedIn. Bye-bye!
You're listening to Music Tectonics.